With its ever-growing popularity, millions of people worldwide wish to visit Disneyland every year. But with those huge crowds come some crazy happenings now and then. And I can't help but feel entertained recalling some of the most interesting moments. There was a time when guests were buying lingerie on Main Street, taking you back to the time when the amusement park had just opened up. Sponsorships were an important part of its concept, and the money they got from them was truly what was behind its establishment and development. But what surprised everybody was the fact that the Hollywood Maxwell Brazier Company was one of these sponsors. So when Disneyland first opened back in 1955, the company ended up opening a luxurious Victorian-style shop on Main Street. It was divided into two parts, with one half devoted to the heritage of undies and the other half to unmentionables. And as if this wasn't insane enough, they even set up a character wearing a turban who was in charge of the museum and was popularly known as the Wizard of Bras. Don't get me wrong, but the amusement park was pretty much meant for kids, and the fact that they thought this would be appropriate is simply hilarious. Fortunately for everybody, the shop hardly lasted 6 months and it was gone by January 1956. But the next big thing to happen here was pretty exciting. It was the birth of Doritos.
I won't be too much longer. I can see the head.
You're doing great, honey.
Yes, you should pretty much thank Disneyland the next time you get the midnight munchies and find yourself in the kitchen holding a Doritos bag and a soda. The iconic crisps were indeed born at the amusement park, and it all started when Elmer Doolin, the founder of Frito-Lay, persuaded Walt Disney to let him open up a Mexican restaurant over there. The restaurant was eventually opened and named Casa de Fritos, and as a tradition, they used to give Fritos corn chips for free with every meal. But as time passed, they started to have too many tortillas to handle, and it didn't help that they inevitably became stale before they were used. One day though, something revolutionary happened. One of the chefs started cutting those stale tortillas, frying them and seasoning them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how something brand new was invented. The guests loved them so much that they eventually came up with the name Doritos for them, and they were being sold at a national level by 1966. I think that it's kind of adorable how the amusement park was able to birth such magic in the form of a crisp packet. But speaking of births, you won't believe what I'm about to tell you next. 4 whole babies were born over here. I mean, we all know that babies love to have their unique sense of time, even when it comes to being born into this world.
All right, Daddy.
And obviously, it sometimes coincides with their parents' other activities. But it's not always as bad as you think, because this is exactly what happened with 4 different lucky babies who got to open their eyes for the first time in the world's most magical place. One of them was born on a bench near the park's entrance, which may seem like an odd place to be born at. But the second baby was born at a Disneyland first aid station, and I'm just glad that they had nurses around to help. There were other babies too, with one of them being born in a backroom office, while another was in the parking lot. Now just think about what these parents must tell their children about their birthplaces. It's probably a story they love telling over and over, and I can't imagine how excited the kids probably get when they get to tell everyone that they were born in Disneyland. But babies aside, some expectant parents have done some pretty crazy things in the park too. One of them hid her baby in her jacket. The entire stunt was pulled just so she could board a ride, which was pretty insane to everybody watching. But in her defense, she was a giant Indy fan, and there was no way that she was going to let go of the chance to sit on the Indiana Jones adventure ride, so she went into it fully prepared. First of all, she was wearing a thick winter jacket in the middle of summer, and it's safe to say that people were a little taken aback by that. Still, they managed to look past it as she entered the queue, but they noticed that she had a baby bump, which is where they stopped her. They told her multiple times that it won't be safe for a pregnant pregnant lady to get onto the ride, and they made it clear that if she did, she would be risking both herself and her unborn child. But as you might have guessed, she didn't come all this way to get nothing in the end. She insisted until they eventually let her go in, but as she boarded the ride, they noticed something unbelievable. The baby bump wasn't a bump, but it was her baby whom she had hidden in her jacket. I mean, you can't judge the woman. She was simply too passionate about it and knew that there was no other way to take her child in with her. Believe it or not, people have tried spreading ashes at the Haunted Mansion, and if you hadn't guessed already, that's not allowed. Still, that hasn't stopped people from bringing the ashes of their loved ones to the site and spreading them at this particular site. It's hard to know what exactly made them do it. Maybe some die-hard fans of Disney wished for their ashes to be spread in the amusement park, but it's a bit too morbid for the park's theme, and it'd make people super wary of going near that area. They do appreciate the love that these fans have for Disney in their hearts, but it just isn't allowed. And you'll be surprised to know that incidents like this have happened more than just a few times. Every time it happens, they have to close the ride temporarily and then resolve the issue with the guests who were involved. And it gets tacky, so if you or anybody you know was planning on doing something like this, it'd be better not to go for it. But there's been another funnier incident at the Haunted Mansion that simply hasn't left my mind. It was an intimate act gone all wrong. I mean, it's always the teenagers who seek a dark spot and want to get things going for themselves. And that's exactly what happened when two teens entered the mansion on grad night. As they saw that it was all dark, they probably assumed that it was safe to do something naughty, but the poor kids had no idea that people were watching. Some of the servants were hidden in the walls, and they had the most hilarious way of catching them in the act. We'll spare you the details, but the staff decided to have their own fun. One of them simply shouted out from the darkness, teasing them. Needless to say that it scared the kids to death, and almost everybody in the management had to get involved to resolve this. I know it's a pretty insane one, but the best one always has to be saved for the last. And for the younger ones tuned in right now, there's a lesson to be learned. But that's all we have for the craziest Disneyland incidents. See you in the next video.